one of the subjects which fascinates me most is the subject of morality and moral dilemmas, especially conflicts between right and right. Not so much conflicts between right and wrong, which are simple, but conflicts between right and right. I never made my literature an instrument of political struggle. In fact, I draw a very strict line. When I want to write about political issues, I write essays and articles. When I want to tell my government to go to hell, I don't write a story, I write an article saying, "Dear government, please go to hell." They read my articles and they don't go to hell for some reason, but I keep writing the same article again and again. When I tell a story out of curiosity, out of empathy, compassion, humor and fascination with human nature. Well, thank you for not identifying me with the character in my book. The character in my book is a product of my imagination. He is not a self-portrait. It's not myself. He is a much more rigid and reserved man than I am, and I wanted to describe this man, how his curiosity and his imagination pushes him into inventing stories about everybody. He sits in a restaurant, orders omelette and coffee, looks at the waitress in the restaurant and immediately invents her life story for her. Then he goes to a public meeting, and while the professor is lecturing about his works, he's looking at the audience and inventing. So he is full of curiosity. And as I said yesterday, curiosity in my view is a moral virtue. Curious person is a better person than person who is not curious. It's not exactly the way that I start stories, it's the way that I live. Each time I am among people, strangers in a railway station, or in an airport, or in a waiting room for a clinic, I look at the other people, I observe them. I look at the body language, I look at the clothes, I overhear snatches of conversations between strangers, and I imagine their lives. It's a wonderful pastime. It's recommended to everyone, not just to writers. It's recommended to every human being to try to imagine the other. I think by imagining the other, we are increasing our own lives, liberate ourselves from the prison of the self into a broader conception of human nature. So I do this all the time, not just in order to write stories, not just in order to collect material and take snapshots. Because people excite me. People excite me and they never bore me wherever I see them. Strangers excite me. I realized quite early in my life that, like many other rebellions, my rebellion against my father went half circle, not full circle, but half circle. On politics, I still differ from my father a great deal. He was a right wing, I am on the left wing. He was a nationalist, I am a peace activist. So I still argue with him 40 years after he died. I still argue with him every day on politics. But I sit in a room full of books, write more books, which is exactly what my father hoped for me to do. So I realize the irony of rebellions. I tell you what I can do. I can talk and write. That's all I can do. And for more than 40 years now, I have been writing and talking and writing about the need to reach an historical compromise between Israel and Palestine. When I say compromise, I don't mean capitulation. I don't mean turn the other cheek to your enemy. I mean try to meet the enemy halfway, somewhere halfway, and make a compromise. Compromises are never happy. There is no such thing as a happy compromise. Compromise is where you only get some of what you wanted, and the other also gets only some of what he wanted and regarded as his right. But I believe compromise is the only way out of this conflict, which is a conflict between right and right. I have been writing for many, many years now about families, about unhappy families. This is my main topic. If I had to answer in one word what all my works are all about, I will say families. If you gave me 2 words, I will say unhappy families. If you give me 3 words, you will have to read my works. And I believe in a compromise as a way of life. I believe in compromise as a regulating principle of human relations, in families and between countries and between nations. Every day of my life I get up very early. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I take a short walk in the desert for 20 minutes or half an hour. The desert begins 2 minutes from my home. I just have to cross the street and another block and I'm in the desert. So I walk in the desert for 20 minutes. It helps me knock everything into proportion, everything at all. Then I go back home. I drink a cup of coffee. I sit myself by my desk and I start asking myself, what if I were him? What if I were her? This is how I write, by imagining myself in the shoes of others, by imagining myself under the skins of others. I work for several hours in the morning until lunchtime. Then I eat lunch and I take a break. And very often in the afternoon I go back to my study to destroy in the afternoon what I wrote in the morning. For me, the need to write is like the need to dream. I don't have the choice to decide whether I dream or not. I dream. I dream every night, and I write every day. And the source of writing may be the same source as the source of dreaming.